What is happening, AI family? So today we're going to talk a little bit about OpenwebUI and Lite LLM. So for those of you who don't know what OpenwebUI is a faster, cheaper, and totally under your control version of what you get when you navigate to ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or any of those. Lite LLM is a middleware service that sits between OpenwebUI and your model providers, and it can give you reviews on who in your family is using what models and how much money you're spending on particular models or particular family members even. So if you're interested in that, stick around, we'll take a look. Alrighty, so the purpose of today's video is actually to get all of this stuff installed. So there is OpenwebUI, Lite LLM, nginx proxy manager, we have Portainer, and we have Postgres and Olama as well. We're going to install them all. Now, you might be saying to yourself, that's a lot to install in one go. I got your back. I've scripted a lot of this, so it should take away a lot of the heavy lifting and head scratching that I had to do when I was plugging all this stuff in together. What we will do in a later video is we will come back and we'll have a look at actually how to use these things, because actually they're super powerful together. You can, within OpenwebUI, you can restrict what family members can use what models. You can put in system prompts per family group or family member. You can, in Lite LLM, you can see which model providers are using the most, which models are using the most, and how much you're spending on them, which is really, really cool. So we'll have a quick look around the OpenwebUI interface now. I'll quickly show you Lite LLM, and then we will get stuck into exactly how to get all this stuff stood up and working. So this is it. This is the landing page for OpenwebUI. So you can see at the minute, if you've used ChatGPT, this is going to seem very familiar because it is. So what you can do in here is you can pick from the list of models that we have in here. So for example, I'm going to pick 3.5 Sonnet, and I'm going to just say hello to it. Hello. And it says, hi, how can I help? Great, that's what you expect from 3.5, nice and concise. You can then switch to, for example, Gemini 2.5, and you can say hello to it. And there you go, hello. So that's switching between models. Now, another really cool thing about this is you can actually have models run side by side, right? So for example, I have Gemini chosen here. If I click this little plus button, I can select another model. So let's say I now want 3.7 Sonnet. So now I'm going to have the two of these give me the same, or give me an answer to the same question. So I'm just going to say, tell me a short story. And then you will see here on the left, Gemini's thinking about it. Claude is getting stuck in already. Not sure why Gemini's taking so long here, but you can see what you're going to get. There we go. So what you're going to get is the output of two different models. One is a little bit more verbose for the other, and you can add more on here onto the screen. You can add as many as you want and do side by side for all these things. So it's a very, very cool tool. Very quickly, we'll look at Lite LLM. So this is the web interface for Lite LLM. Within here, you can add your models. You can see a list of all of the models so you can see in here I have Grok, Perplexity, and DeepSeek, yada yada yada, all the way through here. So you can choose wildcard to essentially say give me all the models from a provider, or you can go model by model per provider and choose exactly what you want to use in here. So it's very, very cool. Alrighty, so that's basically it. There are some other tools that we're going to look at today, but we will talk through those as and when we need to use them. But that is the very quick, high-level introduction to your OpenwebUI and Lite LLM interfaces. Step one, you need a VPS. Now, you definitely can install all these things locally, absolutely. The purpose of this video is to show you how to get this on a VPS so you can easily access this stuff from anywhere with appropriate protection put in place. Okay, so again, for the purpose of this video, we're going to be doing this through Hostinger. Pick your VPS provider of choice. My current personal favorite is Hostinger. It's nice and clean, easy to understand, easy to manage. So that's what we're going to be using today. So you can see this is my Hostinger account in here. If you haven't, get yourself signed up for a Hostinger account. It doesn't cost anything to open the account. Only costs you when you actually spin up your VPS. And actually they're very, very cheap to spin up, which is another reason why I really like Hostinger. Even cheaper if you're in a school community, we have discount codes. So how do you spin up a VPS? So from your panel here on the side, you're going to choose VPS, and in your view, if you haven't created one yet, this is obviously be blank. So you're going to hit this get new VPS plan, and you're going to click on KVM VPS. That will bring you to this screen. So in this screen, what we're going to do is install a plain OS on a VPS. Now there are other options in here. You can install any and all of the stuff that you want to, or you can install it with applications. You can see in here, you can put Docker and N8N and a bunch of other things on it. To keep it simple for us, we're going to do plain OS, and we're going to choose Ubuntu, and the latest version is absolutely fine. So we just click select there, and then we're going to click next. Alrighty, now it's going to ask you for a root password. So because this is how you're going to access your VPS, my advice and plea to you would be make this long and complex and not easy to crack. I already have my root password set up, so I'm just going to fill this in here. My advice would be 20 characters minimum, numbers, uppercase, lowercase letters, and symbols. If you can remember it and tell it to someone else, it's not complex enough. You need something a little bit more complex, because if someone cracks your root password and gets into your VPS, it's dead. They'll just wipe it out. So just make sure that's really, really secure when you do it. So you put your root password in there. If this is not clicked on, click that on. It's a free malware scanner, so we might as well take it. And then we're going to click next again. And then you get to choose from the 4 options here. So the reason I have 4 options is basically on spec. So you can see the lowest one here is 1 virtual CPU, 4 gigs of RAM. The highest one is 8 and 32 gigs of RAM. Now, the lowest one probably isn't good enough for our purposes. It will end up being laggy and slow, I feel. I would advise you to choose either of these 2. These should be more than enough to do what we want to do. So for example, we would click select on KVM2. We would choose our payment period of choice. So you can do, like, obviously, you know, the longer you pay for it, the cheaper it gets, which is cool. I'm not going to complete this because I have a server set up already, so that we're going to use. But when you come in here, you click complete. There are 1 or 2 more steps that I guess you to walk through, which should be fairly self-explanatory. But I'm not going to spin up a new VPS. We're just going to use one we have already. So I am going to go back out of this. Leave purchase. Yes, absolutely. Right. So this is the VPS that we are going to use today. So once you've purchased it, you will have under VPS in your panel, you will have something that looks like this: srvs .cloud. Now, what you're going to do is hit manage, and that will bring you into the settings and controls of the actual VPS itself. So for the purposes of this demo, what I'm actually going to do, because I had some stuff loaded on here already, I'm going to start from complete scratch, show you exactly how to do this. So I am actually going to reset this back to the default setting when I spun it up for the first time. So to do that, in your panel on the left, you click on OS, you click on operating system, and then over here on the right hand side where it says reinstall, you're going to click that button. It's going to tell you that it's going to wipe out all your data. That's exactly what I want for the purposes of this demo. And actually, if you get yourself in a mess when you're doing this, it's best to just start again. It will save hours and days of head scratching and fighting with it to get it working. Just start again. So I recognize all my files have been deleted. Great. So hit next. It's going to ask me for my password, which I'm going to put in and say confirm. And then you will see up here, it says changes are in progress. Recreate VPS action, 1%. It takes a couple of minutes to do this. So what we will do is we will come back when this has finished. Great, so we can see that's actually finished now, and we are back to square one with our OS and with our VPS. Nothing is installed on it bar the bare bones, which is Ubuntu. And so now what we're going to do to prove that, I can tell you that this is stood up because I know, but to prove it, we're going to log in using terminal. So I'm going to grab that and show you that. Okay, so this is, I run on Windows, so this is Windows CMD prompt. My advice to you would be, if you have not got WSL, Windows subsystem Linux installed on your machine, have a quick Google, get that installed, because it's easier to use in my opinion. So within your CMD application, you're going to come over here and click this down arrow, and you're going to click on Ubuntu, and this will bring you to your local instance of WSL. This is not your server just yet. We're gonna get there in a second. Okay, so you can see logged into my home directory down here. So how do we log into the actual VPS? What we are going to do is, back in hosting here, we're going to click on overview, and at the top here you can see it says root access. We're going to use a mechanism called SSH to actually access the VPS. So what you need to do is copy this and then paste it in your WSL terminal. Now this is an interesting error, and it's good for you to know about this. If you do the thing that I just did, where you reset the VPS, it recognizes that, as in your system recognizes that the VPS has changed in the background. So all it's doing here is it's giving you a warning to say, hey, this VPS has changed since the last time you looked at it. Probably not a good idea to log on to it. But if you do want to, what you do is you copy this SSH command down here that it's giving you, and you paste that there. Now what this is essentially is deleting the key it has associated with the VPS in its previous state. Okay, and then we will SSH back into it again. Are you sure you want to connect? Yes, I do. And then root password is the root password that we set when we were creating the VPS in the first place. So I'm going to copy that, come back here, Control V, enter. Now it'll look like you haven't typed anything in. That's just because it doesn't show password, it doesn't show stars, it doesn't show anything. So just Control V very quickly, enter, it'll let you in. Sometimes it doesn't always work on the first time, you see there. So second time should do it for you. Okay, so that's it. So we are definitely inside the server at this point. So we can tell because we can look at our IP up here, which is 168.231. That's what we put in for our root command. And then when we go down here, we can see SRV 796.087. And if we look up here at the top in our overview, we can see that is the exact name of, or it's the exact subdomain of the server that we have created. So great, we're in. That is it. So you stood up your VPS. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at getting all of the applications that we want installed via script. Great, so we have the VPS. The next step for us now is to get everything stood up and working. This is where the magic happens. I'm pretty proud of this bit. It took me a while to get this script together to do this. So without boring you all with the science, let me quickly run through why I scripted this. Because first of all, there is 6 Docker images to spin up, and they all have their own dependencies and needs. There are passwords that need to be set, there are firewalls that need to be restricted, and there are separate models that need to be downloaded for Olama to get all this working together. That sounds as much work as it is. It's a lot of work to do that. So what I done is I created this script to set it all up. So let's zoom into this a little bit, and let me walk you through what this script does very, very quickly. So the first thing we're going to do is, when it spins up for the first time, it's going to ask you for some usernames and passwords. It's going to ask you first of all for this one, the Light LLM master key. So the Light LLM master key is the key that you're going to use when you eventually get this stood up to actually log in to Light LLM. So you'll have a username, which will be admin. It's admin by default, and then it will be your Light LLM master key. Now the format of this is really important. This has to start with sk dash and then whatever you want your password to be. I would highly suggest that you go and find a token generator website somewhere on the internet that will give you back a string of 64 characters, and then grab that and then do sk dash whatever you generated. That's your password. Save that password somewhere and put it in a password manager. It's really useful. Just so you don't have to remember or write it down or any of that stuff. So that's your master key. Your salt key is actually what authenticates your models in the background. So as you download these models, it registers in the background, uses this salt key. You can't change your salt key after you've set up your models for the first time without having to reinstall without re-adding all your models essentially. So that's the light LLM. Then the next two things it's going to ask you for is a username and password for Postgres. Now I'll run you through these in a second. I'll show you how these work. This is because you are spinning up a Dockerized version of Postgres. To be able to access it, it needs that username and password, because later down in here it's going to create your actual URL for the other applications to use, and it needs the username and password to plug into the URL just to set that up. So okay, so that's what the first thing it's going to ask you for. So that is, like you can see, step 1. Step 2 is installing Docker and Docker Compose. So if you've used Docker Desktop on your machine, you should be reasonably familiar with what Docker is. Docker Compose is a step up again from what you can do with Docker. So maybe you've used Docker Desktop, maybe you're used to pulling down an image and spinning up a container with that image one by one. What Docker Compose does is it gives you the opportunity to script out whatever you want to download. So in our case, there are 6 different Docker images that we're going to download. But to do that, what you need to do is get Docker and Docker Engine installed first of all. Again, a little bit fiddly, so I've scripted in here. That is step 2, get Docker and Docker Engine installed. Step 2.5, configuring your firewall. Now, ordinarily, if you look at most tutorials on the internet of how to set this up, they won't talk to you about setting up a firewall. They will set them up and then you will access it by doing 168.192.2.4-8080, which is your port number, and that's how you access it. And that's okay, but it's pretty insecure, honestly. So what we're going to do in our case is we're not going to allow access to anything other than nginx. So nginx is why we have these two, port 80 and port 443. That's what it needs to run. Everything else is going to do what we call expose an endpoint in Docker. So we're not publicly making that port available. We are exposing it internally on the VPS such that the Dockerized images can talk to one another. But externally, we can only talk to port 80 and 443, which is nginx. We are going to then deny everything else. So anything that attempts to connect on any other port will get denied. Obviously, we want to allow outgoing because we need to be able to have our website respond to us, have our OpenwebUI respond to us when we're there. So that is your incoming and outgoing, and then this last bit is just turn it on effectively. So these are your settings for your firewall, UFW, and this is turning on your firewall. Okay, step 3. Essentially set up a directory. That's exactly what it's doing here. So within your home directory on your VPS, it's going to set up this new directory called AI Stack, and AI Stack will then get used later on. We'll see when the containers are running to identify them. Okay, so where we input our light LLM master key and salt key earlier on a Postgres username and password, it's now going to use those to create a .env file that it's going to make on your VPS. Inside there is going to add your light LLM keys, your Postgres username and password keys. It's also going to add this database URL. This is what I was talking about earlier. So this is when you put in your username, when you put in your password, those make up the internal URL of your Postgres database that the applications are going to use. So that's step 4. Step 5. This is where the meat of this script is. So I'm not going to go into everything on here, but I'm just going to show you very quickly what each of these are. So within here, what it's going to do is say set up a network. Now, from a Docker perspective, a network enables one Docker image to talk to another. If you didn't set this up, although they would be externally accessible, they wouldn't be able to talk to one another. So we're going to set up a network, and they're all going to end up on that network. And then we get into the services of what we're actually spinning up here. So npm is nginx proxy manager. You can see here, these are the ports that we're talking about that we're going to expose. And the volume, this is really important. So when you're spinning up Docker containers, you always want to have a volume, because that allows you to then tear down your container and keep your persistent data in the background and spin up a new, for example, if there's an update to the software, it allows you to update the software without losing any of your data. That's what it is in there. So that's nginx proxy manager. Then there is a version of this for Portainer, which we will show you towards the end. It's a really nice UI to be able to manage your Docker images that you can log in and out of remotely. It's a very, very cool thing. Then we have our database. So our database, as we've mentioned, is Postgres, and you can see in here it's using the variables from which we to which we input our username and password earlier on. You will see for the database there is no external expose of any of this stuff. That is internal only by design. Then we have Olama. So for those of you who don't know, Olama is a way to have locally hosted models. So I thought it'd be useful to put this in here as well, because it will give you the option then to either install Olama models on your local VPS, in addition to being able to plug in your LLM provider of choice into Light LLM and consequently into OpenwebUI. So we have Olama as another choice in here. Then we have Light LLM, which you talked about earlier on, exposing its internal port such that nginx proxy manager can talk to it, but nothing else can, which is exactly what we want. And then we have OpenwebUI, pretty much the same as the rest of them, and we're just telling them where other things are. So we're going to tell it where Light LLM is because it needs to be able to talk to that. We're going to tell it where Olama is because it needs to be able to talk to that. And it's going to expose port 8080 internally so that other Docker images can talk to it. And here is our volume. We're just listing out our volumes at the end here. So we have Olama, OpenwebUI, Light LLM, Postgres, Portainer, nginx proxy manager for Let's Encrypt, which is how we're going to get our certificates. And then npm data, which is the actual data from the settings we create effectively. Step 6, deploy the stack. This is a very simple one-line change. This is Docker compose up, and the important bit -d, because what you want this to be running as is a Docker container in the back. If you don't put the -d on the end, it will have it all running live, and you'll see all the logs running in your terminal. But when you close the terminal, everything dies. So you need to do Docker compose up -d. I mean, you don't have to do this. It's already done in there, but I'm just explaining what it is. Then the last thing we're doing in this script is we are pulling the smallest model we can into Olama, which is Llama 3.2 1 billion parameter model. It's very small, 700 or 800 megs. In the model sizes, that's very, very small. And then there's just some messages at the end to tell you how to access things. We're going to go through this in a bit more detail, so you can don't pay too much attention to this now. And there's a little instruction in the end here of how to internally on the VPS to talk to Olama and to check that Olama is running and it has a model in there. So that is it. That is your script. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take the contents of this script, and we are going to create a file on the server that we're going to set up and run as an executable, and we're going to get all this stuff installed. Great, so we have our overview of OpenwebUI. We know what we're going to be installing. We had an overview of the script, so we know what it's going to do. Excuse me, Rob, shut up and make the thing work. Got it. On it. So what we're going to do, back to our VPS. So this is the SSH. We are still logged in here. We're going to clear the screen just to give ourselves some space to work with. And then what we're going to do is we are going to create a script using Ubuntu's built-in text editor, which is Nano. It's a very, very cool thing. So to create the script, we're going to just put in nano space setup.sh, and that will open up this. So you can see it's slightly changed there. This is essentially an empty file, which is what we want. So what I'm going to do now is go and grab all of the contents of the script that I just showed you guys, and I'm going to paste that in here. Just telling me that it's a lot of text for this text editor. Sure. Great. Then to save, we do Control X, we do Y, and we press enter. So that is your script created but not set up to run yet. There is another step that we need to do to actually make this an executable file, and that is to change its permissions. And you do that within Ubuntu by saying chmod space plus x space and then the name of the file. And what this is essentially saying is change its abilities and make it executable. Click enter, and that is it. So that's your script created. Your script is given permission to run as an executable. So at this point, to make that work, you do // setup.sh, enter. Now, this is, you'll remember from when I was walking you through the scripts, you can see This is step one. It's going to ask me for a master key. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to keep it simple so I can remember off the top of my head. Like I say, make sure yours is long and complex, 20 plus characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, the works. So for our purposes, sk-12345, the sk dash is the important bit here. It won't work without that. Then it's going to ask you for a sort key, exactly the same format, sk dash something, and in our case, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, just to keep it interesting. And then it's going to ask us for our Postgres username. You're creating this at this point. It's not asking you what this is. You're creating it. So for the purposes of this demo, we will just say Postgres as the username, and we'll do the same for the password. And that is as much information as it needs from you now to go and do its thing. So this takes about 10 minutes to run. So we are going to let this run and do its thing. And we will come back once it has completed. Good stuff, back in the game. So that's it, completed. And the beauty of the script is, as it's doing it, I've designed it in such a way so it's printing out what it's telling you. So it's printing out what it's doing as it's doing it, so you can go back and make sure that it's walked through all of the processes. So if you go up to the very top, you will remember there were 7 steps in the script. Here is step 1, get the credentials. Step 2, install Docker Compose and Docker Engine. Then we'll scroll down here a little bit, and we will see step 2.5. So here it is, setting up our firewall rules for us. Step 3 is preparing the stack, so it's just creating the directory. Step 4 is creating the .env file. Step 5 is creating your Docker Compose file. Step 6 is deploying it all. So in this step, it pulled it all down, which is what you can see here. So this is actually it, reaching out to the internet and pulling down all these Docker images. And then down here, you can see once it has them, what does it do? So it actually it spins up a network, which is what we talked about in the script. So that's your network here that now allows all your Docker images to talk to one another. Spin up a volume for all the volumes that we described in there, and then you can see in here it's starting all of the actual containers itself. So Llama, npm, Portainer, db, LiteLLM, and OpenwebUI all started. The last thing it does in here is it for Llama, like I mentioned, it reaches out to the internet and it pulls down the 3.2 1 billion parameter model. So you can see here pulling that down. That's why this file is so massive, 1.3 gigs. A little bigger than I thought it was, but that's fine. It pulls down some ancillary files that it needs to actually use that model as well, which are obviously tiny. And then these are the instructions that we put in the bottom, a few instructions about how to use things. Okay, great. So that looks like it's all installed. How can we prove that everything is up and working and running? Okay, so there is a Docker command that you can use here, which is, Docker space PS. And Docker PS is going to give you a list of all your running containers. So you can see, it's a little bit hard to understand what's going on there. Okay, so you can see in here, okay, so I'm essentially saying to Docker, tell me all the containers that are running. And it's saying OpenwebUI, it's running, it's healthy. LiteLLM, it always says it's unhealthy, even when it's working, so don't panic about that. Postgres, great, that's up 2 minutes ago. nginx proxy manager is up, great. Alarm is up, Portainer, great. So that's telling us now that all of our containers are up, created, and working, and it's even detailed the ports down here that we're going to expose internally to make this stuff work. So that is it. That is your application stack spun up and working. Now, you cannot access all of these apart from nginx right now, and that is by design. That is why we put the details in there of the firewall, because we are restricting access to all of these and just making sure it's only nginx that can talk to them, which means we're only going to get secure connections in, which is exactly what we want. So the next step is to set up our subdomains and actually get talking to our actual applications. Alrighty, so we are onto the home stretch, which is great. Okay, so what have we done so far? We have set up our VPS, we have copied our script onto the VPS, we have run that script, it's created a Docker Compose file, it's created a .env, it's created all of our Docker containers and pulled all the images for those containers. It's set up our firewall, and it's pulled a Llama model, 3.21 billion parameter model. Okay, but we can't access it yet, right? Intentionally so. Like I said earlier, we have locked down access to this to a couple of particular ports that we're going to be able to access on. So how do we get there is the next step. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at setting up DNS on a domain that you would have bought. Okay, let me grab the correct domain that I want to work with right here. Alrighty, so doesn't really matter where you buy your domain from. I like buying them from Squarespace. I have them all here. So if you were gonna buy a new domain, for example, you would get yourself a Squarespace account. You would log into and get into domains and do get a domain, which will bring you to a new page, and you can search up your domain and get it bought. Okay, cool. So assuming you have that done, assuming you have your domain, we're going to look at, I'm going to show you this one here. This is the actual domain that I have set up in the background, but I'm going to show you this one because I don't want to show you all my IPs and my NX records and things. So we're going to have a look at this. So this is one that I have not used yet. Okay, so within your DNS, what do we see here? So essentially this is telling domain name servers how to access your VPS. So at the minute, this is not really pointed at anything from our perspective. So we are going to add some records in here that is going to point the subdomains that we're about to create at our server. And then once we have that done, we'll jump over and we'll figure out nginx, and that will be the last piece to getting access to everything. Okay, first steps first. Within your domains dashboard, you choose your domain of choice, assuming you already have this bought. You're now going to click on DNS and you're going to add record. So in here, this is where you're going to name your subdomains for each of the applications that we're going to access. So for example, now you can name these anything you want, it doesn't really matter. Let's say we have OpenwebUI. That's one UI. We want it to be an A record. We want time to live to be 30 minutes, just to make sure that updates nice and quick in the background. And then the last thing we need is our IP address of our VPS. So this is back in Hostinger, back on your overview dashboard for your VPS. At the top here, same place we grabbed the SSH command from. We're just going to grab the IP this time. And we are going to put that IP address in here. So we're basically saying when someone navigates to this subdomain dot our actual domain, send them here. And then we'll figure out with nginx where to actually send them when they get there. So we'll save that one. We would then add another record. So the next one we're going to add is for light LLM, exactly the same deal. Type A, time to live of 30 minutes. This is just how quickly in the background your DNS records get refreshed. Default's 4 hours, but for the purposes of testing, short as possible really. Okay, so we put our IP address in there and we click save. And then there's 2 more to do. So we're going to do add record. We are going to say Portainer, and we'll get to Portainer in the next video. I'll say exactly how you use it, but for now, just trust me, get Portainer in there and get our IP address in there. And then the last one you need to set up, which is probably a little bit, you know what, we're not going to do it. We don't need to set that up. Okay, we can get to nginx. By design, we can get to nginx without having to set up subdomain routing. So what we have in here is our OpenwebUI subdomain, our light LLM subdomain, on our Portainer subdomain. So this is going to enable us to go over to nginx now, where we will set up our proxy hosts on there, and that is the last step in getting access to all of these applications. Awesome stuff. Right, so we are on to the last step here before we can access all of these applications that we've just spun up. So you can see we are back in our Hostinger panel, because what we're going to need to grab from here is the IP address, because the next thing we're going to do is go into nginx and actually get our proxy host set up so we can access everything. So we are going to copy our IP address from here. We are going to go to a new tab in the browser. We're going to paste that in, and then we are going to go to port 81, which is how you get to the nginx UI. Now, when you get here for the first time, don't panic that you don't know what the email and password is. There is default email and password on nginx for every new installation it puts in, and it's actually quite easy to remember, even for me. So it's admin@example.com, and then the password is change me, all lowercase, all one word, CHANGEME. And then you hit sign in, and immediately it's going to get you to change your name. So I will just put Rob D in there. Now then you're going to put in actual email address, which is for me, and then it's going to ask me to change my password. So the current password we know, CHANGEME, and then the new password I'm going to grab from my password store, and I'm just going to paste that in there and paste that in there, and that is it. So we're in. Okay, so this is what you will see when you land in there. Nothing really exciting, and the next thing we're going to do is go and set up our proxy hosts. Okay, so in our dashboard view that we have here, we are going to then click over to hosts, and this is where we're going to actually add our proxy hosts. So at the minute, obviously there's nothing there because we haven't created anything. So we're going to click on add proxy host, and this is where we are going to put in our subdomains and our domain that we are going to use. So in our case, it's OpenwebUI, because that's the subdomain I created, .aiworkshop.tech. Then you leave the scheme HTTP, because this is talking about internal now. For the forward host name, what you actually need is the name of the service as it's described in the script that I showed you earlier. So what does that mean? So for OpenwebUI, for example, this may be a little hard to see, but this is in blue here is the list of services we are going to create. At the top of each service, you can see nginx proxy manager, you can see Portainer, DB, Olama, Light LLM, and OpenwebUI. Okay, so what we're going to do is, for OpenwebUI, this is the name of the service, open-webui. We're going to copy this. We're going to go back to nginx, paste that in here, and then we are going to map that to the internal exposed port that was 8080. Now this is not reachable externally. This is nginx pointing incoming traffic from openwebui.aiworkshop.tech to this internal port. A couple of other steps you want to add here. You want to add in WebSocket support, and you want to add in common exploits. Now we're going to flip over to this SSL tab that we have here. This is a drop down. In here we're going to click on request a new certificate. Okay, so we're going to click on this, and then we are going to turn on Force SSL. We're going to turn on HTTP2 support, and we are going to agree to the terms and conditions, and we are going to hit save. Now in the background, what this is going to do is reach out to Let's Encrypt, which is a free service, and that will issue a certificate, which means that we can talk to this domain over HTTPS, which is exactly what we want. So at this point, in theory, if I click on this link, this will open up OpenwebUI for us for the first time. So let's give it a shot and see what happens. Now, normally when you're launching OpenwebUI for the first time, it does take a second to load. So don't panic that you see, there you go. Don't panic that you see anything, don't see anything first. Now we're not going to go beyond this. This is fine to me. Because I can see that, I've gone to my OpenwebUI domain, subdomain, aiworkshop.tech domain, and it's actually brought me into OpenwebUI, which is exactly what I want. Great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add in the rest. So the other domains that are, the other subdomains were Light LLM, and then same deal. We're going to grab our script. and we are going to look for the name of the service exactly as we described it, Light LLM. We are going to paste that in here, .ai workshop.tech, and then this is your service name that we just copied from the script, and the port is, we're going to grab that from the script as well. So there's Light LLM. So we're just going to look down here for this where it says exposed. This is what we're going to look at. So we're going to grab this port 4000. We're going to come back and put that in there. Again, turn on WebSockets, turn on block common exploits, over to SSL, request a new certificate, force SSL, HTTP2 support, and agree to the terms and conditions. And off it will go and do exactly the same thing again. It will reach out to Let's Encrypt in the background and pull down your brand new SSL cert, which will allow us to talk to the Light LLM subdomain that we have. It can take a few seconds, so just be patient with it. There you go. So in theory now, if I click on Light LLM, it will take me to the Light LLM Swagger page, which is exactly what we want. You can't do anything here. This is just how the API looks. From here, we're going to click into, we're not going to do this now, but we click into this little box here that says Light LLM admin panel. That's where we actually get into Light LLM. So great. So we have Light LLM working and we have OpenwebUI working. And then the last one we are going to add is for Portainer. So same deal again. Portainer.ai workshop.tech. And then we are going to grab our script. And we are going to look for Portainer. There it is. We've said that's going to run on port 9000. So that's going to go in there. And the name of the service is just Portainer, all lowercase. So we copy that, we come back here, and we put that there. So again, this is the subdomain that we set up. So this is portainer.ai workshop.tech. Then we want to turn on WebSocket support. We want to turn on block common exploits, as we have for the other two. We want to go to SSL, and we are going to click again into request a new certificate. Same deal, force SSL, HTTP2 support, agree to the terms and conditions, hit save, and wait for it to happen. Now I want to show you something in here that may freak you out when you see it for the first time, because I know what happens if you start Portainer and then don't access it straight away. So as soon as I have this, there we go. So that is the last of our subdomains that we set up. So now when I click into this, you're probably going to get, yeah, there we go. So your Portainer instance timed out for security purposes to re-enable Portainer, So how do you restart Portainer? That is a really good question. So what we're going to do is we are going to go over to our VPS where we are still logged in over SSH. You can see, I was just looking a second ago to see what containers are up. So although Portainer is up, essentially what it's done is it's paused itself because when it runs for the first time, you get to set a username and password, and obviously if it's up for a long time, you could have spurious actors coming and setting your username and password for you, at which point it's useless. So we would do docker.ps just to prove that all our containers are there. And you can see, where are we? Portainer is this last one here. So you can see it is actually running. It's just saying it's paused itself in the background for security purposes. So all we're going to do is we're going to do docker compose down, which will spin down all the containers. Excuse me, I'm in the wrong directory. That's what the problem is here. So I should have, good for that to happen. It's always good to see the mistakes, I guess. So you will remember from the script, hopefully, that one of the things that it does up in this of step 3 here is it sets up a directory before it creates any of the files. So it sets up a directory called AI stack. You can see here, you do ls al, it will give you a list of all files hidden and not, and folders. You can see AI stack is in there. So I'm just going to clear my screen to make it nice and clear, and then I am going to cd into AI stack, where I can see there we go. So that's the .env file and the Docker Compose file that we created earlier on. If you want to see the contents of those, you would do cat, without actually going into the editor, you can just do cat Docker Compose or cat.env, and it will just print out the contents of those files. Anyway, we don't need to do that now. I'm just telling you, you can do it. So how do we spin down the containers? We do docker space compose down, and it will spin down all of the containers. Now, because we have set up volumes as part of our Docker Compose file, you can do this quite safely, up, down, update the images, and all of your data is safe in the background. So that is everything down now. So if I do docker ps again, you will see nothing is running at this stage, which is exactly what we would expect. So we are going to do docker compose up -d to make it run in the background. And you will see it starts everything up. So you can see it's created the network. It is now spinning up all the containers. The last one is a DB. It just takes a few seconds longer to do that, but all the rest are actually running at this stage. So if I do docker ps again, you will see there we are. There is all of our containers as we would expect. Okay. So back to Portainer, and now if we just go back to the actual domain we were trying to get to, you will see that it'll take you to the actual Portainer. There you go. You get to set your username and password, right? So that is it. You've done it. You have created a VPS, you've bought a domain, you set up your DNS records, you have created a script on the server, you have spun up all of your containers, you've pulled all your images, you've pulled a local model, and the next steps really is how do we use it all? And that's going to be a subject for the next video, because this one's already long enough. Maybe what I'll do, just as a bit of a teaser, let's go to OpenwebUI, and I will log in super quick, and I'll show you that it is actually working in the background. So we do Rob Delaney. And then sure, create an admin account, and I am now logged in. Great. So you'll get a little message here for when you load it for the first time about what's new and what's going on. So you say, okay, let's go, and that's it. You're in, right? So in theory, okay. So in theory, we can now choose our llama model, which we pulled down. That's that one there. And we can talk to it for the, so this is again running locally because we pulled this model onto the machine. So we can just say hello, just to prove it's working. Now it is a 1 billion parameter model, so it is slow and it is a bit dumb. But you can see there it is, that's the model talking to us. So that proves at the very least that OpenwebUI is working, and that Ollama is working, and that we have our model pulled down in the background. So that is it for this video. Thank you guys very much for sticking through this. I appreciate this is a bit of a long one, but hopefully you will find it useful. Any questions, any thoughts, stick them in the comments. See you on the next one.
you.